June 18, 1944. Over the Marianas, a formation of American fighters spots something unusual. It's a Japanese bomber, flying alone, limping, with smoke trailing from its right engine. The Americans know this one well. It's the Mitsubishi G4M, nicknamed the Betty. To American pilots, the Betty was a paradox. It was fast, sleek, and had a remarkable range, but it was also a flying torch. A single burst of gunfire could turn it into a blazing inferno. What the Americans didn't know yet was the reason why. Why had Japan sent thousands of these bombers into combat with almost no protection for the crew or for the massive fuel tanks that filled its fuselage? That answer would only come after one was captured. By 1944, the Betty was one of the most recognizable Japanese aircraft in the Pacific. Officially, the Mitsubishi G4M, it was Japan's primary long-range bomber, introduced in 1941, the same year as the attack on Pearl Harbor. This plane was a workhorse. It could carry over 2,000 kilograms of bombs or even a torpedo. But its most astonishing feature was its range, nearly 3,000 miles. That was almost unheard of for a twin-engine bomber at that time. It allowed Japan to project power across vast stretches of the Pacific. But this incredible range came at a terrible price, a dark trade-off that doomed its crews from the start. The story takes a turn in January 1943. On the island of Rabaul in New Britain, Allied forces overrun a captured Japanese airstrip. Among the wreckage, they find something priceless, a nearly intact Betty bomber. Its paint is scorched, and its engines are seized. But its fuselage is largely preserved. Recognizing a golden opportunity, the U.S. Navy carefully transports the aircraft for a full technical inspection. What they discover inside leaves them absolutely stunned. Inside the Betty's long, slender body, technicians find its fatal secret: massive fuel tanks. These tanks were completely unprotected, unsealed, and exposed. There was no armor plating to shield them, no self-sealing lining, a technology the Americans had already been using since 1942. The tanks were so large they practically formed the structure of the aircraft itself. This meant one bullet, one spark from a tracer round, could ignite the entire bomber in seconds. To the American engineers, it made no sense. Why would Japan, a nation capable of building such advanced machinery, send its airmen into combat in something so vulnerable? It was a death trap by design. The answer, as intelligence reports would later explain, lay in Japan's unique design philosophy. The Imperial Japanese Navy demanded one thing above all else: range. They wanted a bomber that could launch from distant island bases, strike enemy fleets hundreds of miles away, and return without refueling. Armor was heavy. Self-sealing tanks were even heavier. So, under direct orders, Mitsubishi's engineers simply removed them. The result was the G4M, light, elegant, and tragically fragile. Japanese crews were well aware of the risks. They grimly nicknamed their own plane the Type 1 lighter because it burned so easily. Throughout the Pacific campaigns, from the Philippines to the Solomon Islands, American pilots reported the same shocking phenomenon. Betty bombers would explode after just a few hits. Major John W. Mitchell, the ace who led the mission that shot down Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's aircraft, recalled that even tracer rounds were enough to ignite them. There was no margin for error. For the Betty's crew, survival was a long shot. Many flew without parachutes, knowing that if their plane caught fire, there would be no time to escape the inferno. When American engineers at Wright Field finally examined the captured Betty, they confirmed its weaknesses, but they also admired its simplicity and efficiency. The aircraft's lightweight structure and long, narrow wings allowed it to reach speeds of 265 miles per hour, comparable to America's own B-25 Mitchell. Its construction showed how Japan had maximized every single ounce of aluminum to achieve incredible performance. But it was also crystal clear that this efficiency was suicidal in prolonged combat. A post-war technical report summarized it bluntly. The G4M is a magnificent example of over-optimization, performance purchased at the cost of survival. Perhaps the most famous Betty bomber in history was the one carrying Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind of the Pearl Harbor attack. On April 18, 1943, American intelligence intercepted his flight plans. In a mission codenamed Operation Vengeance, US P-38 Lightnings ambushed Yamamoto's G4M1 bomber. When the Americans opened fire, the bomber erupted almost instantly. Fuel poured from the wings as flames consumed it in midair. Yamamoto's body was later found in the wreckage, still seated upright, his uniform largely intact. But the plane around him had been utterly destroyed by fire. It was the ultimate tragic symbol of the Betty's fatal flaw. After the war, the Americans studied captured Bettys extensively. They learned a powerful lesson about how a nation's military doctrine can shape the fate of its entire air force. Japan's obsessive focus on offensive range, while impressive on paper, left its airmen fatally exposed in the reality of combat. By 1944, with experienced crews dwindling, most G4Ms were being repurposed as kamikaze aircraft, their long range now tragically turned into a one-way mission. The lessons learned from the Betty would influence post-war aircraft design across the world, proving that survivability, not just speed or range, is what defines a truly effective combat aircraft. Looking back, the captured Betty bomber was more than just an enemy aircraft. It was a glimpse into the mindset of Imperial Japan. It revealed a nation that prized striking power and sacrifice above protection and endurance. Those unprotected fuel tanks weren't a mistake or an oversight. They were a deliberate decision, one that cost thousands of skilled and brave airmen their lives. Today, only a handful of G4Ms remain, mostly as rusting relics in museums or as jungle wrecks scattered across the Pacific. But the question that American pilots first asked back in 1943 still echoes. Why build such a magnificent machine that couldn't protect the men inside it? It's a chilling reminder that sometimes in war, even brilliant engineering can serve tragic and devastating ends. The Betty was fast, it was far-reaching, and it was doomed from the start. Thanks for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. See you in the next one.